Billy Joel, Vienna. Excellent, excellent. You won't hear it for legal reasons, but I just did. Hello, everybody. Ed Pawley coming to you Sunday morning early, right after midnight, May 24th. And you're going to have to bear with me a second. This is the first time I'm trying this. The only time this is podcast number 3. So this is new, but I hope everybody's doing good. Technically, this is number 3, but that's not. I'm not on a daily schedule with it yet. I was outside. Once it dried up this morning, went out and got a whole day's work in. Actually, little brown, good. I soaked up a lot of sun today, but I don't feel bad. I feel good. I feel energized. But got the last of the all the seating for this year, all the major seating that has nothing to do with putting up a garage. So everything's great. It's just on one thing, and but I waited months. If you're an outdoor person, you have too. And man, didn't it seem like it just a year that is. You can't complain about the weather. The good Lord is in charge of all things. So it's like anything else. Somebody asks you how you're doing, you're like, yeah, can't complain. You know the response. Excuse me. You know the response. Wouldn't do any good anyway. So it's a Saturday night. I think a lot of people must be out tonight. There's a few things going on. It just seemed like the traffic flow was different. I don't know how long I'm going to be on here. Just, if nothing else, it's like writing. I've looked at a lot of different things over the years, read things, listened to interviews. Writers will tell you, I've heard more than a few say, you got to write 1,000,000 words. Or the only way you're ever going to get better at writing is writing. It's just you can't get better at it unless you do it. This is very much the same kind of thing. So I'm not some titan of the AM waves or whatever. This is internet, but years ago I did that. I had it's funny how sometimes in life you get to do things. And there's been different times. I wanted the experience of DJing, and I had that opportunity up in Louisville. It wasn't but for a few months. It started out great, and it just completely fell apart. That's a whole story in itself. There's kind of this Ed's top 10 list. I was at a buddy's one night. We were talking and got to joking, and all these old stories. I mean, stories, they're crazy. You couldn't make them up. That's the funny thing about them. They're all true. if you sat down to write a script, you couldn't think his crap up. But it's been interesting, if nothing else. And I am a firm believer there's lessons in just about everything in life. I can't say how many people view things that way, but I do. And they keep presenting themselves. I think it has a lot to do with just looking for them. Let me check my level here. Like I said, this is not a finished product. I'm going to click on overhead. This is the new, it's called Newer. It looks kind of like newer, but it's 2 E's. So it's newer is, I guess, the easy way to say it, but it's an NW800. I just got this a couple weeks ago. Hopefully it's a little better. One thing on me and mics, I can sing great and speak and everything, but the experience on mic, and I had a guitarist musician confirm this to me. You gotta learn to work a mic. I mean, because it's so easy. I got so much voice. Man, I tell you, I can blow out a window. So, some people know that to be a fact, and I can't say I'm always proud of that, but it's good to have a trained voice when you need it, like the old Army command voice. Yeah, there's a good one. I'm going to try to share this over to Facebook right now. That's the big dilemma. I got another buddy. He's the one that turned me on to this mic, and I love it. I think it's a great mic, and it didn't cost much at all. I mean, for what it does. And a condenser, so it has a little power. I think it's 48 volts. But anyway, I'm running everything. This is I'm in the studio I put together for music, but it didn't take long to figure out if your voice can be good on one mic for one thing, it could be good on another mic for something else. Not just not just singing. Although I love singing, my first preference. But I've had to do a lot of talking in life too, including things like teach and command and stuff. It's weird. It's weird. People just where you're from. It never. I don't think it enters many people's minds that you've seen anywhere else, especially people that haven't traveled a lot. So I'm checking something right now. Bear with me, please. Always ask your patience. Let me see if I can share this real quick. I'm going to keep talking as much as I can because that's the whole point. This is podcast number 3. The first one I did was just a little test, literally. It was 6 minutes and 52 seconds. But somebody found me, and I live stream off of, I got a buddy. I start sometimes, I apologize. Start a story and then stream of conscious right over to something else. Forget the point. Don't want to do that. That's the problem. You get to trying to do more than one thing. But I don't go through Facebook like he did. That reaches your Facebook people, and it's public if you want it to be. But the great thing about YouTube is you live streaming, and it was all pretty easy to set up. I'm using OBS as the interface, and then I run that. The mic and everything is running through my Focusrite, which is the digital. That's where the hardware, mics, guitars, whatever your input is for sound, then gets transferred to a digital signal over USB to the laptop I use. It's the only computer I use anymore, other than my tablet and phone, which are computers. But yeah, I love the laptop. I just finally gave up on desktops altogether. Last time I went back to school, I needed a house. And it's funny. It was for 3D modeling, but it turned out I didn't know the specs are just like the same as what you need for a Haas gaming computer. All of it, all the cards. I just actually just went up to a 1 terabyte SSD for my C drive, and that's just all the programming files, all that crap. I use D as a 2 terabyte. And I use it for storage, and I got 2 more external 2 terabytes. But I do a lot of music and different stuff and files, and adding video and all this podcast and music and art and different stuff. It takes up a lot of space real quick. It's funny. I remember when 150 gig was a big deal. It was all the hard drive you needed. It's all gone. Shoot, you can't barely run just a skeleton computer on 150 gig anymore. It's crazy. But hey, that's what we're doing. It's like technology doubles. And that's what it keeps rolling on to the next phase. And of course now AI is in the mix too. So computer power has come a long way. There was a picture I've posted on Facebook before, and I'm going to try to tell the story while I try to get this shared to Facebook. And I don't know if I can, but it's this picture in the 50s when all this computer stuff was just really new, or just starting to get some speed. And it was IBM forever. That was it. You were IBM or you weren't. And Bill Gates is the one that changed that, and Steve Jobs too, and a lot of other people too that don't get mentioned. But it looked like they were going in the back of a truck. I don't know if it was a forklift or it was a big thing. It was 5 megabit of memory capacity, 5 megabit, and it was the size man, I'm drawing a blank. Imagine, imagine in a laundromat, those big dryers. It was, you're getting in the ballpark, but it was bigger than that. It had to be on it was on a pallet or something, and they had to put it on a lift into the back of the truck. It was huge, and it was 5 meg. That's nothing now. But I've lived long enough to see it go through floppy drives, and it's insane how much more you can carry around on a keychain now. That well, good grief, used to take whole floors of buildings to even try to have as much as you can carry around now in your pocket. So that's pretty amazing. I don't know if I can get this thing. It's killing me. Anyway, I didn't get on here for that. I'll keep it shorter. That way I can post it if anybody wants to watch it tonight. What I wanted to do was talk about, and I'm sorry if I'm rambling. I mean, I literally, I started at noon today. It was beautiful. One little shower, and I was disking up ground for the bees primarily, but everything else that it benefits as well, which is, I'm going to have to talk more about clover. It's going to have to be a thing. For bees, white and red clover. Most effective thing you can do. If you care about that subject, the bees are in jeopardy. They're in stress. I think personally, growing up in the country here in Kentucky, not in the city, you get to see how nature works if you're outside paying attention, not just in the house all the time. And I'm 52 now, so we're not talking, 5-year-old experiences either. You observe things. That's a keystone of science. Is observation. You make observations and you use reasoning and logic to form hypotheses from theory. And yes, I am still currently a psychology and sociology student with Western Kentucky. Honestly, even before Corona, I don't know how much longer that was going to go on. Overwhelmingly, before Corona, I had some deep epiphanies on a few things. It seemed like so many things hit at once, but I overwhelmingly felt that school for another year wasn't just even going to be possible. This last semester that just finished in early May, that was my last for VA benefits. So from here on out, it's paying out of pocket. And I tell you, I don't want to get into it tonight, but education is another subject. I could take an hour on that just to get started. But I just don't care about it. I love learning. I made my mind up long ago, early on, be a lifelong learner. In fact, somebody might have put that in my head, be a lifelong learner. In fact, I'm pretty much sure it had to be somebody else. I don't think I just thought that up on my own. But I made that decision. It was like, yeah, you should be a lifelong learner. You always should learn. You don't have to be in a classroom to do it. The classroom of life is always on if you want it on. So that's where I try to go with it. Sometimes stream of consciousness is, because this is no preparation. All I do is write things down. I've been writing steadily since 2016. And this is the perfect thing. This is the perfect time and example of why you write things down. Because I just drew a blank. And time being precious, I was just looking at my dynamics and viewerships for time. We do lack the patience of our elders that have come before us. No doubt about it. So let me not tax your patience anymore. My old dad. Well, I tell you, I'm going to save that until daytime. I'm going to do a shorter thing. And I don't know what they're doing with Saturday Night Live. And if you like this channel or anything about it, subscribe to my YouTube channel. This is going to take a lot less time. I'm going to wrap this up because it's after midnight, and I don't want to get. I don't want to cut off important things, rushing on Dad's story. So I'll probably do that tomorrow, or Memorial Day being Monday. I might just do a live stream on it Monday, middle of the day, well rested. You know, everybody's cooking out. Hopefully, you know, if it sounds all right, just put it on. What's this guy doing? What's he talking about? But he sounds so good saying it. I like my voice. You know what changed everything? Here's another Ed Top 10 story. The dream of singing. Now, I always had a good singing voice and everything. Always complimented me on it. Everybody did. And they liked it. But any time, and I was born in 68, so we're talking tech from the 70s and 80s being the first 2 decades to gather these impressions with my ear. And I have a very good ear. And I'm honest enough, I hope, always to critique myself as if I'm not me and just listen with an unbiased ear or read with an unbiased eye when I read my own writings. You got to judge yourself honest. And I'll do it. Before 2016, I have almost nothing except for one journal. But I have no songs, poetry. I always wanted to do it, primarily songs. I couldn't do it. It was always a frustration. There's like one thing I can remember writing. It was about apathy. And that was, I was working at GNC in E-Town, Kentucky. Elizabethtown, E-Town for sure, around here. That's where I was born. First in my family, born in a hospital, 1968. I can tell you things from my life. You think, well, I thought that was in history books. No, people, there's a whole America that there's so many people just clueless to. But we all in human psyche tend to view things from our own perspective. That's where empathy comes in. It's so, in love, it's so important to be able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, as they used to say, and see things from the other person's perspective, not their perception. That's 2 different words. Perspective is you have a comparison, and that gives you perspective, because then you're like, oh, okay. I see the relation. I see the comparison. I see the dynamic differences. And you have something to look between. Perception is whatever I want it to be. That's dangerous. But I literally, on a job a few years back, grown man with a college degree, everything. Good title. Good, nice guy. But he was telling me a story, and it was a personal story. I didn't ask or anything, but people have routinely. I couldn't tell you this whole kind of different stories. I've had people walk up just tell me stuff, just like, do I look like a? I'm not complaining because I mean people have really done this. I must look like the bartender or the therapist or just a friendly face maybe that might tell them the truth. I don't know. Yeah, I've had people just confide so much into me over the years and ask. I'm just like desperate. But that tells you a lot where people are. They just, I think too many people are afraid to hurt feelings and lose friendships and different stuff. So what suffers in all that compromise in life? The truth. And there's big compromises and there's little compromises. You know, go into court law and lie for somebody that murdered somebody else, you know they did it. That's a big compromise. When your significant other says, "How do I look in this?" or whatever. "Do you like my car?" "Do I look fat in this?" You know, whatever. And you know. The smart thing to do, the easy thing to do is lie. That's a smaller compromise. It kind of keeps the peace. so to speak. Of course, you have to individually look at, is that helping a situation, though? You always have to be in the situation as well. It's hard to look at everything in an absolute. But anyway, I digress. Again, my name is Ed Pawley. I thank you for listening tonight. I'm not going to take much more time. I was going to go into a bigger story, but please subscribe, hit the notification bell on the screen, and like the video. All that stuff helps. But I'm new to this. I'm going to be around. I've had my frustrations. We're in the outbreak, contagion. I'm not going to go into that stuff too much. I hear that YouTube is restricting if you use the words, and that's the disappointing thing. I'm just getting to all this now, along with a lot of other people. I think the current situation has lent itself to opening. I think some good things are going to come out of this. I think people's eyes are going to be open to things that in the good times, when everything, you just get on a conveyor belt of life. You take your kids here for this on this Tuesday, and then Thursday night we do this, and this is the daily. And I think people just, and I hate it. Stop it. Your life is happening. You're not going to, I said this about sports. I was telling a buddy a few months ago, nobody is going to lay in a hospital on their deathbed and say, I wish I'd have watched more sports. I wish I'd have spent more time out of my life instead of talking to people and living and doing something. I wish I'd have just spent more, for example, Sundays. If I could have spent not 8 hours, but 10 hours. Nobody's thinking that when they're on their deathbed and this life's over. I'm not knocking sports per se, but they're just sports. I think we make too much out of what would otherwise be, in harder times, things we wouldn't even have time for. It's part of our richness. I was thinking earlier, and this is what I got to get to, and then I'm going to let you go. Saturday Night Live is now doing this thing. It's a primetime thing, but I think even before the outbreak, they were doing this. I don't know. I don't watch. I have all that free TV. It didn't cost me anything. Antenna's great. I love it. I grew up with it, and here in rural Kentucky, where I am, we had like 2 channels for solid. You could depend on 2. 3 was getting down into the 75 percentile. And then there was 1 and this is all out of Louisville. I'm an hour south of Louisville. This is home. I love it. Hardin County, Kentucky. I just hate all that government we got. Too much like planning and zoning. I got a mission about that, and it's crazy. My dad, and this is part of my dad's story. So tune back in on podcast probably 4. I'm gonna probably do that Monday. I don't know if I'll do one probably at all tomorrow. I think, I tell you, church is back open. I got a neighbor. She was over here for the last year and a half. Had kind of a tragedy. I helped her out a lot. She got it sold, the place, and I think she's gonna be happier. I don't know. She's leaving, so I'm gonna take Mom over there. She's 88. Mom is, so she couldn't just go walking, and so much going on. But we want to definitely, see her off and make sure we speak before she goes. We like her. I hate that it didn't work out. I really do. Well, that's a whole story, and it's not really mine to tell, so I'm not going to do it. But life happens, and whatever the subject line of the day is, life is always the subject I'm speaking about. Life, whatever else is on the docket. If this was a court, what's over on the playbill? Always. Whatever I call this, and winterbill.com is my website. There's some stuff on it, but it's not being fully used. That's coming quick because all this is now rolling. So a lot of changes coming quick. I was in school until May 5th, so I'm doubling down. The weather just finally hit to where we could get serious about getting out and getting some work done. Got a lot of landscaping to do here this year, and that's just one thing, and it's huge. But there's all the other stuff of life too. So you can't just stop and do one thing at a time. Anyway, school's out. SNL did this thing, and they're on now. Um, the time has always been 11:30 Eastern p.m. Saturday night, but they've been doing this rerun of a thing with the older days. Bill Murray, that whole timeline, the originals. Even though technically he wasn't on the first year as a founding member. Excuse me. But Dan Aykroyd, he did a lot of great slimy characters. The Bassomatic. He did these crazy commercials, and he'd play it's in New York. You got to remember, Saturday Night Live, live from New York. So they joke about the tri-state area and stuff, up there, because New Jersey is right across the river. And I've been up and through there, been to New Jersey. I still have to walk around New York. Been through it. I haven't had the opportunity to get out, or actually just spend some time. And that, hopefully, Lord willing, will change, because that's on my list. Anyway, Jane Curtin is playing an investigative reporter about the nutrition, a potential scandal for the nutrition of children in public schools. And she's got this guy on. He got the contract for the tri-state area for all the schools. And she's reading off all the list of this stuff. And it's like, this food has no nutritional value. It's like chalk inside a taco shell or something. Just crazy stuff. And he's all like, playing the guy, hey, making excuses, talking kind of lawyerly. It's kind of what's implied. It's a funny skit if you want to see if it's on YouTube. Anyway, it got me to thinking about eating poison and stuff, and I was like, we're so rich, and here's what I came up with. We're so rich in America. We got it our affluence is so great. We can eat poison in our diet, and we do. We haven't been on an organic diet in this country since really the Industrial Revolution started taking off in the late 1800s, when they started canning things with salt. Salt was so valuable in 2,000 years ago. Roman legionnaires could be paid in salt. A bag of salt, like a pouch of salt, was worth its weight in gold because it was so rare. Now, we don't think anything about it now. You throw it away. Throw it on the floor. Throw it over her shoulder. Well, good grief, them people didn't do that. They'd be like, oh, don't throw what? Stop. We wasting no salt. What are you, crazy? Are you daft? No. That's where the saying comes from, a man being worth his weight in salt. Or worth his salt. Not worth his weight. Worth his salt. And that was his pay. Getting his pay in salt. Man being worth his salt, worth his pay. Means he was a worker. Didn't slack. So, that's a great example of how the value of things change through time. There's a lot of things like that. Things that were so rare. We eat like kings. I've heard this said before. If you look at how someone like a Louis XIV or King of England from 1600s and 1700s, how any of those of Europe, France, Germany, any of the old countries over there, we eat like those kings did. You have choices, I have choices, and when we go to a grocery store, that you used to have to be a king to see those choices. Oh, wow, lobster? Stuff from all over the world. Only the richest, most powerful people used to eat this and that. Ironically, lobster was not a rich person's. I threw that out in a modern context, and I caught it myself. That's not the history of lobster. There's foods that rich people thought they were too good to eat, like lobster. That was a common thing. That was not royalty food. That's actually one of the things that was eaten in the first Thanksgiving. Yeah, well, the modern diet that we eat today in America on Thanksgiving is not what the Pilgrims and the native tribe had. No, no. They had. I mean, it was up there on the Atlantic in the northern, up in more northern states. It wasn't Virginia. It wasn't. There was two first colonies. One was in Virginia. One was in modern day Massachusetts, Plymouth Rock, and all that. No, I think Jamestown was the southern one. Um, so yeah, it was things from the sea and yeah. Look that up. This is another thing too. I've looked so much stuff up for people, and it just doesn't matter. I've posted so much stuff. Most people, they're so picky in what they're looking for these days. I mean, all they see is maybe the headline or the picture. I mean, I got quite a record of that stuff that I'm not worried about. Early on in Facebook, and I'm talking from Facebook outward, because that's the timeline. I got on Twitter the same year, 2009. I didn't have any interest in any of it. I was just breaking up with this old girl. I was 40. She begged me, oh, you got Facebook? Oh, you got to look at this. I just thought it was silly, but I went in and signed up. And, I started using it. And then something happened, and I know this is a real thing. Everybody has their time frame where they get, and maybe young people don't have to make much of a transition on this. I don't know. That'd be a good psychology question. I didn't. It hadn't dawned on me that actually this is for the whole world to see. This is not just one-on-one or group communication. This truly is. This is as long as the internet lasts, potentially. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I don't think people think about that stuff near enough. But I was on there. It wasn't too long. It might have been 3 weeks, might have been a month. But I was in some exchange, like a game, but it was answering questions. You like this and you like that, and it was kind of a pass along thing. And until I posted that, it hadn't clicked. And it wouldn't. I'm not talking anything dirty or anything. Nothing at all wrong. Nothing I wouldn't put up today. But that really almost shocked me because until that time, it was like I was still mentally treating it like more just friends, or it hadn't really clicked that this is the internet and this is forever as long as the internet lasts. Really, you can dig up just about anything. There's almost no true complete deletion unless you really destroy physical things. But more and more, it just you can't contain stuff as much like you used to. Anyway, um, I'm already getting tired. That's why I'm not going to go any further tonight. But back to the main point was this eating poison. I'm talking molecularly and gastronomically. Man, I have a culinary degree. I'm embarrassing myself. Gastronomically, also. Yeah, we ingest poisons and things we shouldn't all the time. FDA even allows, and the government allows through regulation, they allow a certain amount. And you can, I mean, it's not a perfection thing. A lot of people fool themselves on USDA and all that stuff too. from culinary school. I can tell you, there's a lot of stuff goes on. If you knew it, you'd either have to just blot it out and not care, try to forget it, or you'd quit eating it. You'd change your dietary habits where you get your food. We have not been on a last time Americans was on a truly organic diet. Man, probably Civil War, last big event, and then after that, the post-war, the Industrial Revolution had already started. First over in England, really, and France too, but England's the one that's really on the map biggest for that. And then we followed up shortly thereafter with our own version of it, influenced by whatever that everybody else was doing, science, and mechanics, and different things. I'm sorry, excuse me. Breathe a lot of stuff today, dust, and put out seed. So anyway, oh come on. I apologize. It's very unprofessional. Again, my name is Ed Pawley. I appreciate you stopping by. This is the Winterville Studios here in Eastview, Kentucky. And we're just talking a little bit. That's the main thing on this is just, first things first. If you can't stand the voice, you won't listen. Then, is this guy saying anything? And I do apologize again. I don't apologize too much because these, psyche manner. You don't want to apologize too much because then people start thinking you're weak. It's weird how we view each other, but that's why I chose to go in that field. And I knew it was the right thing for what I was looking for. The first class I had was understanding motivation and emotion. So you can, once I started digging into that, I'm like, yes, why do people act like the way they do and like they do? And it's so much reactionary stuff. I tell you, being mindful is so important, and it's something you have to really be actively doing, or we just go into these patterns. Some just down to genetic stuff, the way we're made, and then others learned, and that starts from the beginning. Conditioning, and learning. That was a good class too, learning how we learn. And that's a ton of experiments on that stuff. Whew. Man, but scientific method, I think it was 1897, I think, is the officially recognized beginning year of the science of psychology. Science of it. Before that, it really was it had grown out of philosophy. And that for years, that's the degree I've wanted. And everything, the safe, everything experience of society says it's a worthless degree. But it's the one I care about the most. And it's the most utilitarian because it can cover any subject. Name another one. That literally, you could go into that and do anything. Philosophy is the one. It includes psychology. So it's only natural that they go together. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But anyway, this nutrition thing. I used to bodybuild, and I was a manager with General Nutrition Center. I had a high level of understanding, even down to the cell. And then combined that with some collegiate studies and a lot of self studies. And it's fascinating. The universe within the universe. Every cell, every molecule, atom. It's so cool. God is just, Bible says his mind is as far above ours as the stars are above the earth. Well, that's light years. So you start working up those distances. And it's crazy. It's not crazy, it's perfect. It's just perspective to keep that in mind. But this old boy, Dan Aykroyd, he's pretty cool. Of course, I don't know who's listening. It was weird. I did this thing on Dogs of War radio, and I'd been through a lot of stuff, and I'd kind of lost. I'd been hurt hard on confidence and just getting a successful movement going. Pick a direction. But coming out of that, something happened early on that was needed, and it helped me a lot. Just getting the voice back. Was doing this, but I hadn't planned it up. A buddy of mine, he had gotten involved in this bunch and met this other veteran, and they wanted to do an internet radio show, so we did it, and it was a good thing. And this is back more closer to the beginning of the Tea Party stuff, back in those years. This was, well, actually, it was a little down the line. It's 2014, 6 years ago, but that had already been around for a while, so didn't come out from the beginning of it, but it did come out of it. People were fired up then too. This is nothing new. People forget that. If it didn't happen before 5 days ago, it didn't happen. Yeah, it happened. You just forgot because we're on this conveyor belt and our show's on, and we got to run over here, and we're just frantic, running to and fro. The Bible said, to and fro. In radio, that's what they would call dead air, and that's like, I think, the cardinal sin. Never just be quiet. But I do believe in dramatic pauses. All I know is I'm tired, and I think I am going to go to bed. I appreciate you listening. If you've listened tonight, I deeply appreciate it. It may not have made a lot of sense, but this, well, let me wrap up, because what I started to say was about the nutrition. Yeah, we're so rich, and I think that is really what might be a silver lining, more than one, to come out of this quarantine-ish thing we've been doing, is that to give some perspective to people. I know I used to substitute teach in Hardin County here, and I was a military instructor before that. And I've talked to a lot of parents over the years, so I always encourage people. Because historically is where I'm drawing my perspective. And it was something in the beginning of America's time. America was it wasn't a country, but the day it declared independence, either way, it was the most literate place on earth. More people could read in America. Has 13 colonies, and then, of course, the day they became their own country, it was the most literate place on earth, even more than its mother country, Britain. More average people could read and write in America than anywhere else in the world. That's where this started, folks. And your education started at home, like all other things with your parents. Your education was their property. It was because it was their responsibility. Now, I've taken some not straight up women's classes, but it's definitely been part of it through more of the sociology side, and along those lines. And there's no doubt that there's different perspectives on the differences of male and female. It's just biology, folks. I mean, we argue about some of this stuff is just, it's tiresome. I mean, this is proven biology. It's not new stuff. Women and men are different at the hormonal level, at the physical level. Yeah, testosterone, estrogen. This is molecular biology, folks. Anyway, I didn't mean to get into all that. Maybe I should just call it a night. I'm having trouble focusing. Help. Anyway, I don't want it to devolve into rambling too much. So I think, but this, here's the thing about this. It's get on and do it. And I am odd, and I don't care as much about what people think of me. I just care about what they think. How I come into that is knowing what they think of me influences what they think, depending on the subject. I know it's kind of squirrely, but it's true. I, I'm not trying to please the world. Do what needs to be done. Be honest about it. Know you're fallible. I mean, people, I've been wrong on the biggest things in life, and that's not even thinking about the little stuff on just a day-to-day basis. Like, where's my keys? Just stupid stuff sometimes. Why did I leave them there? I'm talking about big stuff. I'm talking about salvation, religion, politics, political parties, just a bunch of stuff. I mean, and also I didn't get my way in a lot of things in life too. But I found out. See, that's the great thing about getting older. You should get more perspective because it gives you more comparisons. There's a lot of stuff from when I was younger I no longer believe, and things I believe that I had to change on. Didn't like to. Didn't like to. But I had to. Hmm. Somebody just sent me a message. They didn't get it. I don't think they got the point of what I sent them. Anyway, I'm sorry. I know I'm not finishing enough thoughts. Everything's fine. I mean, I feel fine. I'm just not focused enough. But like I said, this is experience, and it makes you better. And I don't care if it's not perfect. I don't. If I really believed in all that, there's music. There's music up in here in my channel, Ed Pawley on YouTube. Ed Pawley, P-A, Papa Alpha Whiskey Lima Echo Yankee Pawley. Oh, that's a name that's given people fits over the years. But hell, people can't even get my first name right. Edward. Um, the organic diet. You know, for so many different reasons. I mean, the bodies last longer in the grave. This is something I first found out probably 20 some years ago. The bodies are lasting longer. The decompose the decom oh man, decomposing decomposition rates of bodies are taking longer. They've extended because all the preservatives we eat. You are what you eat. Your body is. It's what it works off of. It's not natural. Okay, a lot of this stuff. But the thing is, the supply chain and the food chain, and I'm hoping people. There's a lot of things I've been wanting, that I've been promoting. I think could really come out of this because this changes everything. This is a 100-year change. American history just changed for the next century till 2120, or at least the rest of this century, which is another 80 years. This kind of thing. This is big. It's revolutionary. It's revolutionary. But it has to happen because it shows you where everybody's at. In easy times, and that's one thing I started to say earlier. In easy times, in luxury and the lush times of the feast, well, it's easy to be what they used to call a summer soldier. Yeah, you'd show up for the fight when the weather was great, but when winter came and the cold weather, I gotta go home. That was the days of actual militia. The first engagement with British troops was by militia, private citizens with their own guns. Not nutcase conspiracy theorists and all this modern stuff you get slandered with. People don't know history, and that's the point I'm going to keep coming back to. This is one show, so I can't. I think that's a problem. I'm trying to cover too much ground tonight. It's got to be more organic. Here's another finished thought. I did this dog war thing, The three of us, I think it was Victor 3 or something. We called ourselves for V3, Veteran 3. And it went well. And on that show, I didn't actually speak as much. They went on pretty good, but I just kind of came in where I felt I needed to, almost more like a moderator, but with my opinions. And pretty much just try to say what needs to be said and that hadn't been said and fill in the gaps. But from that, people liked what I did well enough, I suppose. I was asked to do more, and that was on Monday and Wednesday nights for 2 hours. And from that experience, and I always thought, yeah, I think I could do conservative talk or just talk. I think I could do it. And I had the opportunity, just like DJ. I had the opportunity to DJ. Even if it was for a short time. This is almost the same story. DJ and then later on talk radio. So it was internet radio. And I forget what software we used, but I wound up picking up a solo show, and I did it on Tuesday and Thursday nights for 2 hours. 7 to 9 or 8 to 10 or 6 to 8, I don't remember. It was something like that. It was an early evening. You could listen and have your whole night still ahead of you, or have plenty of time before bed. And it was great. And it was just like this. And Limbaugh had said something that I just, he had proven himself a trustworthy source to me. I grew up in a Democrat house, folks. I was a Democrat till 28. And what people are going through now, I had that 24 years ago. And it led up to that. It took 28 years of the whole cycle of the thing. And then 10 years of being an actual adult out there in the world and being a voter. Enough really happened in that 10 years more than any other to see that I had been mistaken. And I won't go into all that tonight. That's another whole show, probably. I'm sorry. And I've been aiming to do a walkaway video on that. But it was a good experience, is the point. And it let me do it. And it let me see that even on a smaller scale, I could do this. What he had said was that I really had been incredulous about was that 3 hours. He does 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, 15 hours. And he always says, man, it's the fastest 3 hours in radio. And he'd be like, folks, you just don't understand. Because he'd be like, 3 o'clock, I can't believe it. We're already out of time. And I haven't even got started. And he says, you just don't understand how 3 hours can just go so fast just from talking, but it's not a problem. And I always kind of thought, man, 3 hours, that's a lot to fill, when you kind of might run out of things to talk about. Until I did it, and I was like, he was absolutely right. I would go half-hour segments, start at exactly top of the hour, and then play one song at the bottom, just give everybody a chance to kitchen, bathroom, wherever you need to do, stand up and stretch, and then 4 or 5 minutes later, I'll come back in. And that's what I did, 4 segments, 30-minute segments. And I might go back to something like that. It might be good to cover topics more like that. I don't know. It's just an experiment, folks. But it was a good experiment back then. It went well. It fell apart. Politics. The politics of, there's micro politics and there's macro. Micro is you and me talking. This is politics. It's politics, if you look at the actual definition, the root of the word and everything. It's just interactions. Politic. Poly being many. I haven't looked it up in a long time. I'm not going to right now, but that's a good thing if you're curious. Look up the word politic. It's just us, how we deal with each other. The art of social interaction, so-called. But we've turned it into governmental operations with our elected officials. It's just easier to say politics. but it has such a bad connotation. If you want to be anything, if you're going into office or you're in office, strive to be a statesman or a stateswoman, a statesperson, whatever you want to say. I try to be a statesman, even though I'm not in elective office. And that's really, I think, where most people are. You either think like a politician. I just had somebody try to blast me on Facebook over a subject, and they wrote this manifesto challenging what I'd put up. I really hadn't said much of nothing except I don't believe in this. And they came back with this whole thing of rationalizations and justifications and leading, and it just, yeah, I've seen it all before. Some of it I used to say um, back in my younger days. So yeah, I knew where it was all going, or I knew where it came from. I'm not even gonna. I don't accept any of it. There's the debate. Doesn't mean you have to accept an inferior or unacceptable alternative. I mean, I wouldn't debate. I wouldn't truly debate like it's an option. You know, think of something hideous that you would never ever go along with. I mean, and then somebody saying, "Now debate me." That's what I think we ought to do. There's no debate. I reject that out of hand. I'm not even going to give honor to it as because it's dishonorable. You know, I mean, when it's just that bad. You know. Anyway, this will get better. And not this is something usually I'm thinking I'm going to be doing in the mornings. Get it out of the way. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be any set time. We'll just have to see. It's stay loose, stay organic. That's one thing I want from now on is more organic. Just don't get so upset trying to control everything. You gotta flow. You gotta flow with it. Anyway, I appreciate you stopping by tonight. I hope this has been entertaining in some way. I know I've kind of went all over the place, but to end this on the organic food. Man, if you want to get serious, and this is one of those golden silver lining things I'm thinking might come out of these times is people see they need to. We can't all live in cities, and we can get into the whole aspect of that through environmentalism versus conservation and what we need to do for the environment, different things. I'm telling you one thing you can't do. If you believe in all that, either way, you can't live in a city. I mean that's a strikeout right there. It's like 3 is 1, boom, one shot, and that was it. You need if you're going to get serious. The only thing it changes, let's say you really did want to produce some kind of emission or something, or not use as much of a commodity, natural resource. Well, then you need to be out here where I'm living. You need to live in the country, and I got to do more myself. Even there's a lot of different things there I do and don't believe, but I do absolutely believe in being a good steward. But we've got food coming in from China, and that brings up China. I hope that's not going to get me knocked off for this video. Because we really saw that place was getting tore up with a lot of different stuff a few months ago. Now what's going on now? And one thing was last year, how, if you noticed the NBA, the freedom protests were going on, the NBA caved. Money, folks. These people have vowed to destroy us, and we're giving them the greatest thing to our own self-destruction. They have vowed to destroy us, but we've turned around and the commodity is trust. We're trusting China because of money, because of cheap labor, and it's the biggest market in the world. That's the thing. Marvel has changed characters in the Marvel MCU, particularly the teacher, the mentor of Doctor Strange. Originally, that was an Asian man in the comics. They changed it. What's it? Tilda. Well, I don't want to get her wrong. The last name wrong. The actress who played the master sorcerer, the old wise one. Yeah, she was supposed to be from Celtic. Yeah, they totally whitewashed that for China because China didn't want it and they didn't want to offend them, so they changed it. And that's where we were with China. Even before this happened, I was talking about, man, we gotta have some kind of moment of clarity on China. I mean, we're literally funding someone. It's like buying. It's like your local hitman running a bakery, and you go in there and buy bread every day, and this guy says, I'm killing you, right? Oh, yeah, great. I love the bread. Yeah, you're literally funding the person that says, I'm going to take you out. That's been our weird relationship with China really since the 90s. And that is a whole story right there. How we started down this road with China is something this country needs to hear and needs to be made aware of. There's I'm convinced now that after all this, that there really is a portion of the country that just, I don't know, traditional debate does not work on them. It's just, well, I'm going to stop there, but you can't get to everybody is my point. It doesn't matter how many facts, truth, whatever. So you just have to roll with that. You talk to who's listening, and everything else is really just a frustration at some point. Doesn't mean you don't talk to those people or whatever. You just try to be at peace with all people as much as you can. Jesus said, "Be at peace with all men as much as possible." So no, I'm not out there. I'm just forget it. I got too much to do. I want to have fun. I want more happiness in my life. Doesn't mean I'm not going to stop. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop caring about anything I already care about. But tactics-wise, I was in the Army, and I don't pretend to be General Patton or anything, but I know some basics about tactics. And I know if one tactic don't work over and over and over and over and over, that's the definition of insanity, is continuing the same course of action and expect a different result. Tactics are no different. If a head-on is not working, a frontal, then you go around the side and you flank, or you come around back. You try something different. Just keep losing people. And I feel like it's like that. We have to change, because what we're doing, I don't care what you believe. I care what you believe, but I don't care what you believe. Whatever you believe, you got to admit, this ain't working. Yeah, and I think that's the core key of what we need to be talking about. What do we have in common? When it gets this divided, you got to start coming back on, well, we got this in common. We got that in common. The poet laureate of the United States, the great Maya Angelou, she said, I'll slightly paraphrase, if we just concentrated on what we have in common, well, the world would be a much happier place. And it's absolutely correct. It seems it's easy, and we all seem to focus on what we have in different. What's different between us? And I think that's a very profound observation. It's easy to do, but it's a bad habit, and we need to break it. Start talking about what we got in common again. And I'd say one thing most of us can say is in common: this ain't working well enough. Something's wrong, and something must change. And we'll leave it at that. But as far as your food, try your best. But if you're going to get serious about, especially now, not just the environmental aspect, absolutely. If you believe in all that, and change must happen, then the only thing that's going to change any of those numbers significantly is not what a government mandates, but enough people from their own hearts and minds caring enough to do it. And that starts with you and me. We have to change, and we all have to change. And just because somebody makes a law doesn't mean it changes. You can beat somebody over the head, or you can give them an incentive to do it for themselves. That's what we don't do enough of in this country. We always have to remember the word incentive or disincentive. An incentive is a reason to do something, and a disincentive is, well, I don't want to do it. And when you try to beat people over the head all the time with law, it becomes disincentive because they get resentful. Because people, even children and adults, in a lot of ways, we are all still children. We don't like to be told what to do. We don't. That's just the way it is. We kind of get rebellious about that. But yeah, it matters. And I grew up in a place where we had a lot of organic stuff. Had our own hogs, had our own big gardens, canned stuff. Good grief. Might be eating green beans from 3 years ago just fine. They were canned. They're perfectly perfect because they're vacuum sealed and they're boiled. There's nothing in them. They're safe, just as good as the day they were put up in that salty water. But you'll have to make changes. That and subdivisions need to go too. I'll go ahead and say that. I'm doing experiments here. I'm using my land, trying to help the bees, and it worked. Today I counted more bees today on my property than the total of the last 3 years. I mean, it's been lean. Habitat destruction, I fully believe, is the number one cause of it, and that mostly comes down to subdivisions. We're destroying land around these cities. It's not enough. People don't want to live in the cities, so guess what? Somebody came up with a con, and I looked up the story on this. It happened for a reason, and it was planned. I ain't talking about a conspiracy. It just happened. It wasn't a secret, but a lot of people just thought it was progress and called it a good thing. A lot of people just didn't notice. They'd be driving around wherever they lived, and oh, look, some houses going up. But it was, we basically, as a country, quit building grid cities like we had until the 20th century. And we started shifting to these, I don't want to throw in words unfairly, like hippie, but modern. I think modernism is one of the biggest problems we got. Now, I'm not talking about being anti-technology or anything. I'm talking about mankind. There's a history of it all the way back. Mankind's continuing fascination to worship at the feet of the newest technology. We're suckers for it. I'm telling you, it's a shiny thing to us. We just, what? And we just kind of just lose our perspective on things. Yeah, I mean, look at people in tents and sleeping on sidewalks for phones to get a new phone. That's what I'm talking about, folks. It's silly. I never could get behind that. Just got to have the newest thing. Neo lust, I guess. I don't know. I haven't really thought about what term that would be. But something like that. I say I'm getting off here now. I keep talking. But the food thing's too important. I very much thought about a nutrition degree, but when I took I can't squeeze everything in, but it's hard to give you just the skipping stones on the top of the water too sometimes. Your food, if you live out, you need probably about 17 acres. It's funny. I never would have thought it, but the template of, if you use what I grew up with as a template, it's really a good example of you don't have to have 100 acres. People, that used to be, every American understood what an acre was, what a hectare was, and it would help you visualize land. But back to the subdivisions. It's not about the land. It's just enough land to put a house on and not use. Just enough to put a house on. I can't do it, folks. And I know it's bad. I always knew it was. As soon as I saw them, I was like, it's a horrible use of land. And I think the bees is one thing that's come out of it. Now, I've put habitat back for them here with white and red clover. And the white clover is killing it this year. We had 2 killing frosts late. It was like last year. It's like winter kind of hung around, but it wasn't too bad. It just wasn't nice enough to actually be summer or spring, and then boom, it's warm all of a sudden. So last year in May, I started putting out, started sowing acres of clover here, white and red mix, 50-50. And it did great. And what I finished today was filling in the gaps that I didn't do last year. Last year was a test, and it did great. And I went out today, and sure enough, it's kind of like that Kevin Costner movie. If you build it, they'll come. Well, I put the clover out, and the bees have come. They are here. And 1 year to make that difference. It's a food source. And it's funny, I was just watching, I wound up watching this thing on bees the other night. Not planned, I just happened to find it. It popped up. And it showed, it might have been PBS actually, KET here in Kentucky. And it showed how they show the rest of the hive the direction to go to find food that the scout found. And they get in there and they put the bee's body position, and it vibrates. When it points in a direction, it vibrates in a certain pattern, and it tells the rest of the hive where to go based on this whole display. And they put it side by side with a compass, and it was exactly like the compass said, that degree, same degree to the food source. So that's what I've done, and I'm even letting my front yard go right now. A lot of white clover, and it's so thick that it's keeping down the growth because it's taking a lot of nutrients up from the fescue and stuff. Now, when the clover, if it does play out later in the year, if I have to cut it, the fescue will come through and it'll restore itself. Then, I mean, it's not that it's not there, but that's the worst thing about having clover in the yard is mowing it. Because when you mow it, you're cutting off the bloom. The flower on the top is the whole point. That's where things like pollen, nectar, and all that stuff is. Yeah, that's the whole thing. That's pollination. Bee goes to one, then the other, and the other, and another, and another. Yeah, I think honeybees are responsible for 80% of the foods we eat have to be pollinated, and it is done so primarily by the honeybee. I mean, that's kind of, God made all things, and honeybee is made to pollinate. It does it better than anybody, and it makes beautiful honey out of it too. Yeah, it's funny. I put my place here. I had it moved here in 2004. I found it, a mobile home, and I brought it here, but I had other work to do, so I just kind of left it here without the underpinning on it in the beginning, and I wasn't living in it. I continued to work and live elsewhere, but I'd come in and work on it when I could, and that's how I did everything to be brief. I did everything but the septic system, and that was only because the government pretty much gave me a wink and said, if you want really to pass, you need to use the people we like, as they slid a list over to me. I mean, blatant. Just that should never happen when you're talking to any government at any level. This local government, county, I'm talking about. That's another story as well. There's no end of stories, folks. Good grief. But I'll have to start, I don't know, I'll have to start labeling them better and focus just on one at a time maybe. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. See how it feels. But anyway, yeah, they're out there working. Boom. just like that. And I think they work up to a mile away. So that means right now there's some kind of hive within a mile of me. And hopefully there'll be more. I talked to a guy 2 years ago. He had 5 hives, and I think he said 2 just disappeared over. That was 2 years ago. And that's where we're at. I think it's a lot of movement and stress, but I really think it's the food source just disappearing. It's like if I just cut all my clover right now, there'd be nothing. They'd come back and it wouldn't be here, and boom, and now they got to go hunting again. And maybe there isn't anything else, and that's what happens. I think they go where they've been going, and then they go back, and the whole tree line has been just bulldozed, whole field cut, or maybe burned, depending on where you live. Yeah, just gone. Or they're out working and they come back and the home's gone, the hive's gone, been bulldozed or whatever. I think that's a whole lot of it. It's just what was there yesterday is gone today, and the bee life suffers and dies because of it. Urban sprawl. Sprawl, they call it. Don't want to live in the city, so you go just outside the city with just enough grass and a couple of trees to kind of psychologically fool you into thinking you're not living in the city. And then they zone everything to where commercial and non-commercial is separate. So you get 20, 30 houses, and you can't even walk to get milk. What do you got to do? Because they won't let us store in the cul-de-sac or the neighborhood. It's got to be separate. All the housing over here and the business over there. Well, what's the first thing you got to do? Hey, honey, out of bread. In the car. There's your fossil fuels. You have to drive. See, in the city, it never was like that originally. Well, shoot. The old world way and the way it still is. You got a business downstairs or out front, and you live in the back or upstairs. I had that example growing up here, right down at the corner, half a mile away. A little country store. Guy was the postal carrier, but he also had a general store. They lived upstairs. They lived in the back, and the store was in the front. Old world. But that place went in probably in the 1920s. That's the way it was. That's the way it was. And it's still the way it is. This is nonsense, this modernism with our planning and zoning and all this crap. Houston, Texas does not have it planning and zoning. I just learned this probably about 6 months ago. They are proof. You need proof. Oh, and this is what it always is. It's always the hyperbolic exaggeration. Oh, if we did away with that, people build shacks. People they'd be trying to nail a roof with while they're standing on the roof. It just they make up the silliest sounding stuff they can, and it's a fear tactic. Well, you don't want that. Hell, maybe I do. Anyway, the point is, they did away with planning and zoning in Houston, and none of that crap came true. They're losing. They're using less energy. And people's houses are not falling down on top of them, miraculously, because people have an incentive not to want their house to fall down on them and kill themselves and their family. That was understood in America in the beginning. That's the whole thing about freedom. I have to trust you, and you have to trust me. If you ever hear that old saying, freedom isn't free, okay, that's the cost of freedom right there. I have to trust my neighbor with his or her freedom, and they have to trust me, their neighbor. We have to trust each other with liberty, or you lose it. Without that trust of each other, not of government, of each other. I have to trust you with your freedom. You have to trust me with mine. And if we can't, you get where we've come to now. Hey, you can't trust that guy. See if this sounds familiar. See that guy over here? He got too much. Look at that house. It's always, he didn't get it honestly right. Yeah, I already knew somebody. this. I heard that. Yeah, who do you think he is? All that crap is where that's what it's all about. It's about appealing to the baser instincts. Envy, pride, jealousy, covetousness, strife, backbiting, gossip. They even call it class envy. And then somebody comes along and says, "Hey, you like me? I'll get even for you. I'll take care of that guy. I'll show him what it's about. I know you can't because you're not me." It's so insulting. The whole thing, when you start breaking it down, it's insulting. And I hate to see people think so little of themselves. Even that little man term, I don't like it. I'm as little under that definition. I'm as little guy as anybody, but I don't like it because it's insulting. It carries an implication that you are helpless. You're little. We're big. You need us. I think it's a setup. It's a falsehood. It's a portrayal of something to get you to believe in something that's not true. That you're ignorant, stupid, helpless, not good enough, not competent. You know, if I just spoke out like that to somebody, you might get punched in the nose. I mean, and you know, how would I blame somebody if I just, well, you're a loser. But if you know how to sweet talk it right, like politicians do, wow, good grief. Yeah, I'm a little, oh, yeah, that's right. What am I going to do? I'm powerless. Next thing you know, you're believing it. You gotta watch that stuff, folks. That is somebody wanting something from you. When they deride what you can do, and you need me. When they say you need them, and they're not asking you to be in it with them, except just support me and I'll do it all. Because it's implied that they have the smarts that you don't, and a competency to do something with it. And I just reject it all out of hand. I hate that people think so little of themselves. Not that I'm great, but I'm not a blithering fool. Come on. Again, no middle. Just these absolutist extremes. Anyway. A good 20, even a 10 acre. I mean, if you want to after seeing how supply chains, I think a lot of people are just clueless on all this stuff. Really, honestly. I'm not saying that to be a prick, pardon my language, but I'm just saying I think a lot of people's eyes have been open to many things that they took for granted. Let's say it like that. And food is one. And not, all the, going back to 2000 with the Y2K. I mean, every time something comes up, you see people start hoarding stuff. But actually going the whole 9 yards without turning into some kind of doomsday prepper. I mean, cellars were common where I come from. My grandmother had a cellar, we had a cellar, my neighbor had a cellar. You kept your food in it. Those canned goods I was talking about. You put that's called putting that stuff up. Put it up. You put it up for the winter. You put it up for the long storage. That go-to, like the ant and the grasshopper. You got to be the ant. Prepare for winter. Prepare for it, because it is coming. You gotta have enough storage to get you through the winter. But yeah, it doesn't have to be a nuclear fallout center, a shelter. That's fine if you want to do that, but you ought to have a place where you can keep. I think the smart thing to do would probably just get a food grade barrel, 55-gallon drum. drinking water. I'd go by that kind. I mean, if you're gonna be serious about it, put 1 or 2 in there. Do a little math. How long do you know? If the electricity went out, how long do I need to be able to make it? That's a big thing. If electricity, that worries me far more than any virus. Now, there's numbers out there that's been reported, because this is a legitimate threat to worry about. Is EMP pulse, electromagnetic pulse. You detonate a nuke miles above the Earth, and it'll blot out a whole continent or a large part of it. See, when a nuke goes off, it sends out this electromagnetic pulse, and it fries anything electronic, unless it's been shielded. And our electric grid in this country, forget your car and your phone, I mean, every little appliance that uses electricity has circuits in it. Every gadget, everything uses electricity. Fries it. The worst thing about that is our electric grid. Those lines that are everywhere that actually deliver electricity to your home. Fries that, there's no structure. There's no way to get electricity to you at that point. They say if that were to occur, 90% population loss 1 year. And most of those people will be from cities. This isn't some doomsday stuff. These are just, this is the world we live in. Let's put it that way. We have people that don't like us. They have bad toys. And, just like with North Korea, that just one guy, pretty young, boom, he's out. Now they're talking about his sister being worse than him. It's just, you can't plan all this different stuff. But, you don't know who's going to be in charge of what tomorrow and what button they're going to push. I mean, you just don't know. So, there's a lot of different reasons, but I would strongly suggest just I would love at least 20% of the people living in cities to move out. Just 20% would be such a huge difference. I'm not saying you got to go back to 1776. Living on a farm using mules. Come on. Again, the silliness of the exaggerated hyperbole. What are you going to go back to using? Sails and go around the world? Well, if you got the money and you want to do things, that's fine. But no, I'm not talking about silliness for all of us. We're not going to go back to a pre-electric world. But we shouldn't forget the pre-electric. Let's say there's 10,000 years history of man. Forget that. Cut it in half. Wait a minute. Well, I don't know. Let me check the time, because I think I'm about done. If you've been listening, and I haven't checked on anything, but if you've been listening or are listening now, I surely do appreciate it. I hope it's making sense. I'm going to get a little groggy. I'm going to call it a night. The time is 1:47. Just like that, folks. It goes so fast. He was right. I didn't believe it until I started doing it, but he was right. Hours can go by. Hours go by like nothing. Usually I don't check the clock till it usually works out to be like 47 minutes, somewhere in there. Podcast number 2 was like that. I didn't plan it at all. It worked out 57 minutes. Almost 58. So perfectly for an hour podcast. Ed Pawley, East Kentucky. Winterville Studios, winterville.com is the website. And we've been through a lot this year, but just remember, individual liberty is the cornerstone of this country. That doesn't change. If it does change, it's not the same country. You got to remember that. There's nothing without liberty. Nothing else matters. You're just a servant or some sort of servitude. So just, you don't have to be a freak about it. Don't have to scream, yell at people. Just, I think the thing is, this year is just work. If you ever had a dream, this is the time to do it, because that's kind of stuff that'll save this country. Is people getting a stake. The less and less people work and don't have to work to make a living, when you're paying people not to work with governmental programs and so on and so forth, fewer and fewer people are pulling the load, and they look and they see people walking, getting off, having a good time, and they're like, why am I working? That's really the whole point of something like a book, Atlas Shrugged. When you look around, everybody else is getting paid to not work, and you're the only one working, guess what? It's human nature. You shrug. Forget it. I'm done. And that's where things eventually go with all that. So I hope this has been something to think about. I'll talk more. And here's the thing. Even in getting around the different subjects, let me know what you think in the comments. And people, I read a lot of comments. Not even anything to do with me. I just kind of gauge people, how they are, things they say. And yeah, use the comments. If there's something I touched on that didn't finish, hey, tell the rest of that story. Whatever you want. Doesn't mean I'm gonna do it, but it gives me guidance, and I'll try to do it. And I'll do my best to read everything. And if there's a specific subject, my old first go through with internet radio, here's basically my proposition. Subjects, what can you ask about, or what will I talk about? 95 to 98% of anything. I reserve, as a Kentucky gentleman, for discretion, the remainder. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Just because you can say something doesn't mean you should. There is a time for silence. Doesn't have to be that much, but yeah, that small amount of time is just, better not. Best just not say anything, or no comment, or nobody's business. But not everything should be said. That's another thing I learned in life. Sometimes the best thing to do is just nothing. Just hold your tongue, keep your peace, as they used to say. All right, folks. It is going on 2:00 a.m. This is Memorial Day weekend. Please remember those that have laid down their life, the ultimate sacrifice for the freedoms we still enjoy today. Now, I'm fully going to tell you straight up, it's more tentative than I've ever seen it in my lifetime. And I was born when Vietnam was going on. Good grief. But at least we aren't rioting too much in the streets. I mean, it could be worse. But when you see everything going on today, ask yourself, and there's a list, I've read it, how many dead and from each war. Two biggest, Civil War and World War II. That's well over 1 million right there. More than 1 million people have died, almost entirely men. You gotta say that's a historical fact. We're not talking 50-50, 60-40, 90-10. We're talking upper 90th percentile. Primarily men have given their lives for this country. But women have too. And that doesn't even go into all the sacrifices. But Memorial Day is specifically for those who have lost their life while in the military. In particular, combat. So I want you to remember those folks. I tell you a good thing to do Monday, if you don't hear from me again on this, is go to any local cemetery. Usually, you can tell a veteran there will be a bronze plate at the feet, the opposite end from the headstone. And that is provided free of charge by I believe the Veterans Administration. for anyone who has served in the military, any honorably discharged veteran. Um, I don't think it hurt anything. Go to a Dollar General or any of these little shops like that. Get you some little flags. I tell you, it might mean somebody. Of course, that person's gone. We're not talking about something they'll know something about, but it might mean something to a loved one. I know it's happened to us before. You go to the cemetery and somebody's done something nice. Put a flag on a veteran's grave or some flowers. Absolutely. Nothing wrong with that at all. It's a kind gesture, and the best thing to do on that is expect nothing in return. Just do it because it's the right thing to do. I hope you have a good holiday. I mean, it's weird. We're having a holiday and we haven't worked, and well, no, I'm not going to say that either. A lot of people have worked. Can't say that. But a lot of people have been kept out of work too. Millions and millions and millions. So I say let's just try to get back to normal. I'm not getting into all that tonight, but you know, you got to work. If you don't work, you don't eat, as it says. And I mean, it's such a simple thing, but it's so true. I mean, it is the truth. It takes action to get reaction, and rewards don't just fall out of the sky. Not as far when it comes down to putting a roof over your head and clothes on your back and food in the belly, and then not just you, but after that, from there outward, charity begins at home, and we got to work. I hope you've enjoyed something out of this. It's 2 o'clock. I'm going to bed, and hopefully go back to church tomorrow. And if you're so inclined, I encourage you to do so. If you look at the first of the people that came here first, there was definitely a north and a south, even from the very beginning. Two colonies, Plymouth and Jamestown. One was more southern, growing and warmer, and the other was more northern, industrial and seafaring. And that's where it all grew out of, what became America. But the northern way is kind of, I think, in many ways, what won out. There was two distinct philosophies, and the northern one didn't really have slavery. It never took in the north like it did in the south, just because of agriculture and the need of laborers. Laborers, that's what we'd call them today. But that, of course, is a term that implies that it's a free choice to labor. And of course, no slave ever had a choice. And that's the definition of not having freedom. And we want to keep our freedom. I don't care what you look like. I really don't. If you're an American citizen, you're the same as me. We have a family in a way. We're a tribe in a way. We are bound together by common law and written law. And if we don't hold that standard up, nothing else will last long. Be safe. Always take time to pray. Jesus is the one. I hope you had a good time. Come back. See us again. Thanks. Peace.